What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we're going to be talking about a film that I wanted to make sure I got under my belt before 2024 was over, and that film is called Music by John Williams. You know that feeling that you get when you're watching a movie that you had planned on checking out before, but then the weeks and the months went by, you didn't get around to it. Now you're watching it, you're about halfway through, and all you can feel is shame that you hadn't seen this film yet. That's exactly what I felt with the documentary that we're talking about today, Music by John Williams, which is directed by Laurent Bouzereau. Going into this film, I was incredibly excited. If you guys have been following this channel, then you know I'm a ginormous fan of John Williams. I have been very open about the fact that he is my favorite composer for film of all time. And as somebody who grew up playing music, I've always had a love for him as a musician as well. What he's done on the music side of things outside of just film scores. I think he's absolutely a mastermind when it comes down to film scores, orchestrated stuff in general, and just as a composer and as a musician, I just think he's brilliant on every level. But that's not something that is surprising, right? Everybody knows that John Williams is amazing, and I think that's exactly what makes this movie so beautiful. Going into it, I was just expecting a great documentary to tell us the story of John Williams, but as somebody who is familiar with John Williams and has watched countless various documentaries of the makings of various movies or scores that he has done movies for, you know, I knew a lot about him going into it, so I wanted to make sure that there was going to be things in this movie that I also walked away from it thinking, I didn't know that. That's awesome to see or hear. And thankfully, that's exactly what I got with Music by John Williams as well. This is a film that takes you through his life, down to his adolescence, and how he got into music, why he got into music, some of his family background, some of his family tragedy, as well as we move up from his TV days into working in feature films, and eventually working with greats like Steven Spielberg's, George Lucas, and so many others who do appear in this documentary to give interviews. So many of the filmmakers that he has worked alongside, like Spielberg and Lucas, as well as Kathleen Kennedy, J.J. Abrams, Ron Howard, and so many others. There's also some other people in here who are just fans of him as well, like the lead singer of Coldplay or somebody like Seth MacFarlane, who was also in this as well. On top of celebrity individuals and filmmakers like the big directors and stuff I've already mentioned, or producers, there's also a slew of other editors and musicians that he worked with over the course of his career who appear over the course of this documentary to talk about their time working with John Williams and what it was like. Overall, I was incredibly impressed with this documentary, and it made me feel things because you have that John Williams music playing throughout all of it, and the fact that he can be a director that's so versatile, that's done things like as big and grand like Jaws and Star Wars and the Indiana Jones films, Jurassic Park, Harry Potter, and so many other things, but also has done smaller things like a TV show like Gilligan's Island, or little small jingles for television, or like the Olympics theme song. There's so many different things that this guy has done over the course of his career that this film is able to tackle and showcase throughout the course of it in a way that is easily digestible and honestly got you really emotional. As a big fan of John Williams, I had a smile on my face already, but I feel like this is going to be a really great documentary for people who have maybe heard of John Williams or heard his music, but don't know an abundance about him from behind the scenes and what makes him the man he is. As a fan, it was nice to get that new information I didn't really necessarily know, but it was also nice to be able to be, you know, re-explained stuff that I already know from a different lens, or being approached in a cool and different way, getting to see some images and footage of him back in the day in these moments where he was creating some of these scores that are some of the most iconic music of all time. And as a lot of the various individuals who are interviewed in this documentary say, he's created music that lives in all of us, that lives in our mind, that is just part of the cultural zeitgeist in a way that most musicians would pray and wish to have. And I think when it comes down to what he's been able to accomplish, it's absolutely incredible. I mean, as a longtime fan myself of musical scores, but specifically what he's done, there are so many emotions that man has made me feel, from happy to whimsical to smiley to angry to sad. He's able to put me in so many moods and take me through a journey with his music alone. And my favorite thing of all time, if you guys have followed this channel, is Star Wars. You guys know I love Star Wars from beginning to end. There's so much about that franchise that's so special to me, and John Williams is a huge part of it. And I've heard George Lucas say it on several occasions, and he also says it in this documentary, but a huge reason that Star Wars works is John Williams. The music is part of what makes Star Wars so epic. It's part of what tells the story. You could literally watch sequences of Star Wars without the dialogue and just the music and still get what's going on in terms of the emotion of the scene. And I think that's really something that John Williams is a mastermind at when it comes down to all of the various scores that he's done over the course of time. And so this is going to be a shorter review. There's not much to say here because on a filmmaking level, it's a competently, very well made documentary that gives you information in a digestible way. It flows, it isn't boring to watch, it's whimsical, it uses John Williams music to really make you feel stuff while you're hearing the stories of his life and the various things that he was able to do with these scores. Being able to go through such a ginormous filmography of music that this man has created is absolutely incredible. Also learning about some of the stuff he did outside of the film world and the life he had before he was the ginormous film score, giant that he is today. He's just an individual I will always cherish and love in my heart. And as he gets up into his later years, in his 90s now, I just hope that we can always remember John Williams as one of the greatest of all times and always look back at him fondly. And while he's still with us, I'm just grateful to be celebrating his music in a way like this. So I'm ashamed that I hadn't gotten around to this at any point until now, but this is more of a video, not just to review it because I'm just kind of telling you what this is about and my personal connections to John Williams, but more so to recommend it to you guys. I think if you're a fan of John Williams, if you're a fan of any of the music that he's done for so many films like E.T., Indiana Jones, the Star Wars films, and so many others, Jurassic Park, the man has made some of the most iconic music of all time. There are movies like Home Alone and Harry Potter that people know the music of immediately when they think of those films. And what he's been able to do across his career is just mesmerizing. There's no way to say it other than that. So this is a video just as a recommendation for you guys to go and check it out. If you're like me and you hadn't gotten around to it yet, it's on Disney Plus. It's only about an hour and 45 minutes. It breezed by and it is certainly worth your time. The only gripes I really have with it is I wish it was a little bit longer. There's a couple of movies and film scores that he worked on that this kind of breezes by because there is a lot of information to jam pack here, and I would have loved to have had more information. I would have loved to have explored a little bit more of certain films and scores that he's done that I absolutely love. But that's a fairly minor gripe in a film that I ultimately found to be beautifully well made, that honors the legacy of a man who's created some of the most important pieces of music in cinema and in the world all these years later, that people are able to still connect to, music that people are emotionally connected to on a rich and deep level. And the reality is not every film score has that. Not every film composer is able to accomplish that. And what John Williams has done is absolutely immaculate. So that's going to be my thoughts on Music by John Williams. Highly recommend it. Go check it out on Disney Plus if you haven't. And if you have already checked it out, what did you guys think about this documentary? Were you as enthralled with what was going on here as I was? Are you as a big fan of John Williams as I am? Also, if you are a big fan of John Williams, I would love to hear down below, what is your favorite film score for John Williams? That is a hard one to narrow down, so if you got to list a few, I understand. But a big thanks to you guys for watching one of my last reviews in the year of 2024. I really appreciate you guys taking the time, and I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Bye-bye.